Good evening, everybody. It's Friday night. Sorry for the break. And once again, it's Greasy time. Coming at you live from the funky basement in the House of Grease. From the 615, that's Nashville, Tennessee. I'm your humble host, jdsimomusic. We're going to have some fun. It's good to see you all again in a digital sense. Let's have some fun, all right? A little tribute to Junior Kimbrough tonight. One of my absolute favorites. One of my favorite things to listen to and have some fun with. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? It's been a minute. Before I go any further, welcome to Greasy Time. There's a great picture of Junior and his old juke joint. That's no longer there, burned down in, 20 years ago, down in Tullahoma, Mississippi. That was Junior's joint. You can tell by the paint behind him, the mural behind him. Incidentally, Junior's wearing a Rhythm Room t-shirt, which goes back to my days living in Phoenix, Arizona. Bob Cortor, the owner and proprietor, and one of the best harmonica players in the world. It was very good to me when I was a little kid, and it pains me now that I never got to see Junior play. I just missed him by like that much, folks. He used to play the Rhythm Room all the time, and I sure wish I could have seen Junior play. But at any rate, welcome to the show. I'll throw the logo. The Venmo is already up there. Uh-oh, that's missing. All right, well, never mind then. We don't need a logo. Got the Venmo and PayPal down there. Really appreciate y'all taking the time to spend a Friday evening with me, or if you're watching the archive of this, spend some time with me on your own, at your leisure. But if you would be so kind as to throw some in the old PayPal or Venmo, I sure would appreciate it. We're figuring out how to do this, but it's still slow going. And happy to say that haven't been able to do the last few weeks because I've been busy. I've been working. We been having a great time playing these private house shows, socially distant, of course, and it's been really great. Got to go see my good friends Phil and Natasha. Love you guys, and also got to play for some others, and there's a bunch more coming up. So. Really having a great time playing with the fellas and getting on in our little COVID bubble of a van and listening to podcasts and records and doing it. It's been a lot of fun. But it's great to be back with you guys. There's been some changes down here. I did a bunch of reorganizing down here in the House of Grease. Things are really groovy down here now. I'm in another part of it so that I can actually have access to all my amps and all this kind of stuff, and the drums are just over there. You can sort of see the drum hut over my shoulder, and the bass is over in the corner now, and everything's really comfy and groovy. So I'm in a new location in the funky basement. But nonetheless, let's dive right into our records of the week. There's been so many records lately and so many really good ones that have come out. So I'll try and keep it somewhat brief. My first one that I may have talked about this before, I can't remember, but this is a record that I love a lot. This is from 1969. This is Ike Turner and the Kings of Rhythm, A Black Man's Soul. This is I've talked about Ike Turner before on the show, mostly about his 50s stuff, either with the Kings of Rhythm playing some of the most low-down blues you've ever heard, or playing with Jackie Brenston, along with many other things that Ike played on. I mean, as both a piano player and a guitar player and a band leader, I mean, he was a very, very prominent guy all through the early era of rock and roll, and a huge mentor to a lot of really notable, famous people. But this record is a straight-up soul R&B funk record, and in particular, the track "Thinking Black," which is just insanely awesome, is so rad. It's a great record, and as always, these are all available on iTunes. The next is actually from no stranger to the show. My buddies GA20 from up in Boston. They just released an EP called Live Volume 1, and I love these guys. They're becoming buddies, and we've got a lot of mutual friends, and This is they do some really cool tunes that I love. I'm actually going to do one of the tunes tonight on the show. That's on this an old JB Lenore tune called "The Whale Swallowed Me," which I'll talk about in a minute. But they do an awesome version of it on this. Anyway, I love these guys, and give that a check out. And speaking of JB Lenore, this is a really good. I'll take the Venmo and paper down for a second. This is the JOB sessions. This is my favorite period of JB. I don't talk about JB enough on the show. He was, I mean, very much kind of in the style of Big Bill Brunzi and oh gosh, I mean, that's the best I can sort of steer if anybody's not familiar with JB. He just was real laid back, real high voice, and really cool fingerstyle playing trance-like guitar. And anyway, I'll probably do a future episode. I could talk about JB for hours, so I'll just leave it at that. Check out the record if you're not hip. Most of my buddies out there are all too hip. And then, the tonight's show, I'm going to be talking a lot about Junior Kimbrough, who's my favorite of the Hill Country Bluesmen. I know I've talked about this record before on the show. This is my favorite Junior record. Most things haven't worked out. This is just my Desert Island record for Junior. I love them all, and you should check them all out. But this is my favorite. And so coming back to the home screen, my last record of the week is actually a piece of vinyl. This is the Budos Band's new album, Long in the Tooth. And I love these guys. This is one of my absolute favorite bands in the world. Tom Brennick, one of my favorite guitar players. Much respect, Tom. I love you, pal. And this is just a great record. And this just came out. I think this just came out today. And so this is on Spotify and all the streaming platforms. But this is a vinyl edition that I've got, and you can get that through Daptone. The gear portion, the rig of the week. I don't talk about my good friends Gil and Nicole Devine enough, but I love them. I love them so. Divine Noise cable. I'm using one of the straight ones. I've got my my one curly. Here it is. It's running into my Alamo back here, but my curly that you see me play all the time. I've got a bunch of them, but they've just been such good friends to me. We've really become good buddies. Every time we go through Portland, which before the pandemic we'd go through Portland 2-3 times a year maybe. It was we always get together and hang out. They're just really, really good people. I love you dearly, you guys, and they make a big difference, man. I think the older I get, the more I kind of don't obsess over minutia in my equipment. I've already done that when I was younger, and there's a lot to be learned from it. But right now it's about digging what I got, and it's about making music, letting go and letting it flow. A lot of times when you put a lot of emphasis on the equipment, it distracts you from connecting to the source and truly letting it be what it's supposed to be. At least in my case, that's my experience with it. But Divine Noise cables in Portland, Oregon, they're the best, and they're the kings. So I love them dearly. Suppose before I go any further into the episode, I just want to remind you that the new record is still out. So stream it on all the streaming platforms. And if you want a T-shirt or a vinyl bundle or any of those, you can go to the Bandcamp site. Just Google JD Simo Bandcamp. It'll come right up. And all that stuff is there, including Greasy Time T-shirts. I apologize to the people who may have put in orders these last couple of weeks because I've been slow getting them out because we've been busy. So they're all going out, I promise, folks. So anyway, I'm going to do another tune for you. I'm actually going to do do a Junior Kimbrough tune. I sort of did a loose kind of jam on a Junior Kimbrough kind of thing on our way in, but gonna do a tune of his right now called "I'm in Love," and this is from that record. Most things haven't worked out that I talked about, and so we'll see if I can get something groovy going, get you some hill country.
Clothes, girl. Let's go dance. I wanna make love to you, girl, all night long. All night long. All night long.
Yeah. That's so freaking fun. You have no idea. Junior Kimbrough, ladies and gentlemen. My favorite. All right. I'm going to move this out the way, I think. Move that out the way so we can talk a while. All right. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, is my hair okay? Is it properly messed up? That's what I'm going for, baby. Going for that natural look. All right. So, Junior Kimbrough, man. The man. God, I just love this cat so much, man. He's just one of my absolute favorites. So, you know, the Hill Country region, North Mississippi, Northwest Mississippi, it's the whole scene of that area obviously is rich, and you could get a doctorate and write a thesis on all of the music that came out of there, the Delta. So I'm gonna preface what I'm about to say with saying that, you know, I'm gonna jump around a bit, and my aim here is to just entertain and to give you some stuff to look into and some stuff that you might not know, knowing that there's just a cavalcade of stuff. All the artists that I'm gonna casually just mention are worth, you know, investigating on your own if you haven't. My favorite of the Hill Country, and so really, you know, to go to the basis of it, the true king of the Hill Country sound, it's not like the Delta sound of the 30s and 40s, what people, you know, talk about with Robert Johnson and Son House and Charlie Patton and many, many others. The Hill Country thing is a bit later, the style. And the style of Hill Country blues really kind of goes back to Fred McDowell, to Mississippi Fred McDowell. There's many others, okay? There's guys like Furry Lewis, this guy right here, all right? And there's guys like Otha Turner, this guy right here, okay? That are like, you know, originators, but really when it comes down to it, Fred McDowell is kind of the king of where this kind of style comes from, all right? And Fred McDowell, other than being a very influential guy like John Lee Hooker or any of the or Lightning Hopkins or any of the other originators, you know, Fred McDowell got to experience what those guys experienced with the folk boom, and actually having a bit of somewhat widespread recognition before passing away, and was, you know, Fred McDowell was featured in like the American Patchwork documentary, which was a PBS special that a lot of people saw back in the 70s. I saw that as a child. I remember renting that video from the library, and incidentally, you know, he played in that particular bit of footage, he's playing his red Gibson Trini Lopez with a Bigsby on it, and that guitar actually belongs to Dan Arbach now, which is pretty cool. Actually, I think it's this photo, the guitar in this photo, even though it's not a colored photo, that guitar actually Dan Arbach from the Black Keys has now, which is really hip. Dan's got some cool stuff. He's got Hound Dog Taylor's old Tysco. I'm kind of, as the more I go along on my journey of life, the less sort of, I'm not a collector person. It's just not. I mean, I like records, you know, but I'm not really, you know, like the instruments you see around me. I've just got a handful that really do what I want, and I'm not a guy that has 20 guitars, you know. I'm just not that guy, and even if I have the means, you know, it's just not my personality. And when it comes down to it, I just end up playing this anyway. So, but anyway, Dan though has really groovy stuff. The handful of times I've been able to go do something over at Easy Eye, his studio. It was just great to see everything. And also, he's really good friends with Carter Vintage, as I am. And so I get my stuff worked on by my man Kevin and my man Zach, and they're in the back. And Dan brings stuff in all the time to get worked on. And so it's cool. That's actually where I saw Hound Dog Taylor's guitar, because I couldn't believe it was it, you know, like the one, you know. That beats any collection I've seen, man. That's pretty hip. Have Fred McDowell's Trini Lopez and Hound Dog Taylor's Tysco. That's enough for me. So anyway, Fred McDowell, you know, the style of hill country is very trance-like. Okay, that's the thing, where there's a pulse to it that's really hypnotic. It's influenced, you know, like definitely some of the guys that I'm going to talk about were influenced by John Lee Hooker. Super influenced by Fred McDowell, obviously, Muddy Waters, you know. But it's that, you know, like I did a post on Instagram a week or two ago playing that sort of Fred McDowell, you know. That kind of thing, that pulse. So that's where a lot of this sort of hypnotic tranceness, whatever, I'm going with it, trance-like music comes from. And the thing that's funny about it is the more primitive, I mean, those of you who watch the show, I mean, it's like I can play country music, I can play, you know, lots of different stuff. That's very pretty, you know. I can do stuff that's kind of interesting and whatever. But to play this really primitive style is actually one of the hardest things that I've ever sort of attempted to do. And the reason being is because the more refined you make your playing, the harder it is to sound, like Captain Beefheart used to say, like to sound like a drowning man. Okay? To play primitively where you only have so much facility is very difficult to assimilate when you have facility. And the other thing is that if you're listening to something that's kind of complicated or very notey or something like that, there's normalizations, if I can say that, within music where it's like we hear certain types of licks or certain types of runs, and it's like it may be difficult, but it's like they're kind of conventional, like they make sense, okay? And so when you listen to this kind of music, it's so primitive that they do stuff that's, for lack of a better term, the first time you hear it, sometimes it sounds wrong. It sounds like a mistake. It sounds, you know, but for me at least, there's a thing that happens where it's like you listen to it enough and you just sort of click over and it becomes so incredibly cool and so just, oh man, just so interesting because it's so hip. It's so unlike so many other things, you know? And then you try and do it, and it's actually so easy that it's hard. It's one of those things where it's like a lot of great musicians, I think, could listen to some of this stuff and then sit down and it's like, oh, I can do it, it's just this, but then they don't sound like it at all, you know? They may think they do, but they don't. And so I'm just endlessly fascinated by this stuff, and I just think it's hip as shit. And I'm just really into it. And it definitely is something that, I mean, I was exposed to it for the first time when I was a teenager, and I thought it was cool, but I was really into rock and roll, you know? I mean, I was really into Hendrix and all that kind of stuff, and it's like now as a grown man, as a grown-ass man, as I would say, now I'll take this stuff all day long. I think there's a certain maturity in it that you kind of have to appreciate it. You know, it's not as Michael Bloomfield once said. It's not kids music. It's not boys music. It's grown up music. You know. So so moving on from there. So Junior Kimbrough is one of a host of several prominent guys from, you know, the 70s, 80s, and mostly from the 90s when Fat Possum Records got going in Oxford, Mississippi. And they're still going strong. God bless Bruce and the guys at Fat Possum. And, you know, Junior was one of the first to sort of get some acclaim, but followed not too far behind by, you know, R.L. Burnside, who, you know, R.L. was very much kind of a mentee, if you will. He's mentored by Mississippi Fred McDowell, and I actually prefer R.L. stuff from the 70s when he really, I mean, because there's, you know, the thing about all these guys, but like Fred McDowell, I've never heard, me and Joe McMahon were talking about this again last week, that I've never heard, and nor has he, anyone that can sound like Fred McDowell. R.L. could. And there's that great video of Jumper on the Line of R.L. Burnside. Go watch that. Like, leave my show right now and go watch Jumper on the Line of R.L. Burnside. That is the greatest. The rhythm in his hand, I mean, it's just insane. I've never seen anybody do anything like it. So, anyway, you got R.L. Burnside, you got T Model Ford, okay, and you got Cedell Davis, okay, and Cedell obviously was stricken with polio, so he actually played with a butter knife and was confined to a wheelchair. And all these guys and a few more were featured in the great, you know, documentary You See Me Laughing, The Last of the Hill Country Bluesmen. And this is a great, you know, again, I've talked about this on the show before, but I mean, this is a movie that me and all my friends have worn out. And bit of trivia, I didn't realize until fairly recently that my dear friend Patrick Sweeney, who is really the authority on all this stuff when it comes to hill country music, he's actually in that movie, in the crowd, watching R.L. Burnside. You can see him clearly, and it's hilarious that he's always been in that. So that's kind of the main roster of Fat Possum, and obviously Fat Possum would gain complete ridiculous international acclaim due to the great success of the Black Keys, and obviously Dan Auerbach is hugely influenced by all this stuff, and a huge fan of it. And, you know, there's a connection there with my buddy Pat Sweeney as well, going back, you know, 20 years ago. They both grew up together in Ohio, in Akron, and also my longtime musical soulmate Adam Abershoff was in bands with all of them back then, playing this music. You know, this is how they grew up, playing this music. And so Junior Kimbrough, let's get to it. Where's a good photo of him? Here's the photo I haven't shown. So Junior grew up loving Lightning Hopkins and Fred McDowell, and learned to play, you know, the normal way in those days in Mississippi. He grew up where he put wires from the screen door and nailed them to the wall and played with a bottle on the side of the house, which is how a lot of guys first started playing music in those days on the farms in the South. And anyway, I'll skip ahead to 1966. In 1966, in Memphis, he caught the attention of one of the founders of High Records. High Records I've talked about on the show before. That's Willie Mitchell, who produced and wrote all the great Al Green stuff in the 70s. High Records is his record company. And so in 66, his partner, Clouch, actually cut a whole record with Junior. And Junior, they had discovered James Carr and O.V. Wright, and they took Junior over to American Studios, which is where, you know, Son of a Preacher Man and Memphis Soul Stew and Elvis Cut Suspicious Minds and all that. They cut a whole record there. And it never got released. They deemed it too country, believe it or not. And so, just after that, he cut a version of Lowell Fulsom's Tramp, which actually was a fairly big hit for Junior. And right around this time, Charlie Feathers, who's another big, influential, more country kind of guy from that time, he was very mentored by Junior. And Junior really showed him, and Charlie actually went on to have a great career. He figures into the story right around that. But anyway, all this stuff doesn't work out, and he's very discouraged, and he doesn't really record for most, if not all, of the 70s, and he just worked on the farm, and was really poor, and played on the weekends at juke joints for his own pleasure, and to drink a bit, and have a good time. And he put together a band called the Soul Blues Boys in the late 70s, early 80s. And they actually ended up cutting a record called Do the Romp in the mid 80s, which is another record that didn't come out then. They held on to it. They put it out like 25 years later, and it's a great record. You can see that Junior he was amazing. I mean, he had his own thing. He sounded like nobody else, And one of the things that's documented well in the Fat Possum movie is, Junior was really discouraged multiple times about watching other people kind of succeed and him not really succeed. And he vehemently, at a certain point, right around, this, what I'm talking about, in the 80s, he didn't want to play anyone else's music. He only wanted to play original music, and he didn't want to do anything that was going to benefit somebody else. He wanted to do something that was his own, and he was very, 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 rigid about that. Which, guys like his contemporaries, R.L. Burnside and C. Dale Davis, and T. Model Ford, I mean, they all played covers. They all played Fred McDowell songs, and they all played John Lee Hooker songs, and they all, not Junior, man. Junior did his thing, and so he kind of invented a style, this sort of, this trance-like pseudo hip-hop freeform type of style, almost out of spite, and it's just so cool, man. I mean, I don't know. Once the bug bit, you either love it or you hate it. But it's like when the bug bites you, it's really something else. And so, right around the time that Junior has completely kind of resigned himself of, I'm just doing my thing and that's it, he had his first juke joint, which is the Chihuahua Rib Shack, and Robert Palmer came through and filmed with Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics a documentary called Deep Blues, and they shot Junior in his rib joint playing all night long, and that was in the movie, and that got a lot of attention, and sort of ignited interest in Junior. And they would play at the juke joint Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And a couple of years after that is when Junior opened Junior's Place in Tullahoma, Mississippi, and he played there until he died in 1998. And it was right after the Deep Blues doc came out that Fat Possum, Bruce and the guys at Fat Possum, along with Robert Palmer, put together Junior's first record, and then subsequently released several more. And Junior was immediately embraced by the coolest faction of the world, Rolling Stone, and all of a sudden you had Keith Richards coming down to Tullahoma, Mississippi, and going into Junior's juke joint which barely held 100 people and was in the middle of a field, you know, and it was a $2 cover and beers were $2. And U2 went down there famously to hang out. Iggy Pop called to have Junior come and open up a tour for him. Iggy Pop loved Junior. And he's this hip, cool dude. And unfortunately only got to experience a few years of that because he passed away in 1998. He had a heart attack and he was 67 years old. And his sons took over the proprietorship of the juke joint, but unfortunately it burned down in 2000, so it's no longer there. But Junior is just, you know, I think the closest thing to the real thing that has been around, certainly in my lifetime. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it pains me that I never had a chance to see him play. You know, I just missed him, and I just love him. He brings me a lot of peace, and I think it's great that at least he got to have a little bit of a taste of what it felt like to be respected and to be loved. There's only a handful of footage that exists of him, just like everybody else I love, seemingly, and I love him a lot. So, you know, I know there's probably, you know, if you're watching this, you either are into it or at least somewhat interested. And so anyway, just much love to Junior. He's a big influence on me, and definitely as I sort of move forward in my own musical path, you know, it's certainly you know, my love of blues, you know, is at the forefront of my many loves, you know. But definitely in the course of this pandemic, I've jumped into such a love of Afrobeat music, you know, Fela Kuti, and also, you know, really dove into this hill country stuff like I never really did before. And that sort of African trance-like music is definitely something that I'm really obsessed with, and I just can't get enough of. There's just something about it that it's just so cool. So anyway, there's a bit of a history on Junior's life, and you know, one thing I do want to mention, you know, I mean, as much as I love this stuff and am somewhat knowledgeable, you know, I mentioned my buddy Patrick Sweeney, who really knows this stuff really well, and Dan Arbach. But also, I got a freaking shout out to my dear friends and brothers, Luther and Cody Dickinson from the North Mississippi All-Stars. I mean, it goes without saying, they are the purveyors of this art form. They learned at the feet of these people. They, you know, Luther and I and Cody, you know, we've shared a lot of fun times together, playing with Phil Lesh and friends together in Phil's band, and which actually is because Luther recommended me. I got to play with Phil because of Luther, and Luther and I have done stuff together outside of that, and you know, Luther and Cody are the real thing. They're the next generation of that, you know, and I mentioned Furry Lewis earlier. I mean, and Otha Turner. I mean, they're the ones that can really speak about this, you know, to the depth that needs to be. You know, I just love and respect it, and so I just want to put that out there because there's lots that I love, but I just want to point you in the right direction. You know, the guys that really know. I just love Junior Kimbrough. That's what it comes down to. So. All right, so without further ado, I have a new song that Adam and I cut the day before yesterday down here in the funky basement. It's a groovy little ditty. It's called "It's Gone," and put together a nice little video for you. And so as we move into the last bit of the show here, I'm gonna debut "It's Gone" here. From the funky basement in the House of Grease. I'll see you in a few minutes. Enjoy. There you have it, folks. It's gone. A funky little ditty from this daddy. So, anyway, I really hope that you guys have had a good night and enjoyed yourself. I've really had a great time being back with you. I'm going to keep doing these as long as you want me to. I really enjoy them, and you know, as things continue to get busier and all that, I'll do them when I can. Is that a deal? All right. So go get yourself some Fat Possum. Go to Fat Possum Records. All these artists that I've talked about, you can get stuff from them, and they're good, groovy people working on the right side of the force for sure. And to quote my good friend Webb Waller, another Mississippi cat, love you, Webb, if you out there. And just take care of yourself. You know, drop some Skrilla in the PayPal or Venmo for old JD if you enjoy the show and enjoy what's going on. And I hope to see you soon. We've got a couple of socially distant public performances coming up. We actually have one in Joplin, Missouri, and also one in Memphis coming up just at the end of this month. So go to my website, jdsimo.net, or go to any of the things, the Facebook page here, any of that stuff. You'll be able to find info. And also, you know, if you're interested in maybe doing one of these private house concert type of things, reach out through Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and we'll get you taken care of. It's really proven to be a really fun, awesome thing that is been really safe. I felt really safe at all of them, and it certainly has been an incredible release for everyone, us, the people. It's a very bonding, beautiful thing in this time. So much love from me in the House of Grease, in the Funky Basement. Take care of yourselves, and as always, keep it greasy. JD out.